Hi, Spring fans. Welcome to another installment of Spring Tips, a very special installment. You see, I'm about to go on vacation, and I was wondering what can I do. I wanted to get an episode out, but then, the beach calls. I'm kind of over it. It would be fine. But then I realized I actually had something better than no episode. Actually, I had something better than a regular episode. Actually, it's way better than a regular episode. It's uh, a surprise epic live stream that I did with Rob Winch, lead of Spring Security, just a few days ago, in which, and again, I was interviewing him for the podcast. So I was expecting just a regular discussion, but no, he brought his AA plus game and gave us this incredible demo of sort of both the art of API design, the use of proxies, sort of a natural dovetail to the video I just did a few weeks ago on proxies in Spring, and in particular all their applications in the new method security support in Spring Security. So today, my friends, I bring to you an extra special, super duper good installment of Spring Tips. This time with special guest star and Spring Security lead extraordinaire, Rob Winch. Yeah, you're gonna have fun. Just enjoy. See you next week.
One thing I don't think people appreciate is that Spring Security can also be used to protect method to like object method invocations, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that people really enjoy about Spring Security, and it really helps you integrate into like not just as much as everyone loves Spring and uses Spring, there are other technologies. Sorry, I had to mention them here. Yeah. But Spring Security is still used to secure those technologies many times, and often that is using method security. But people also use method security in their Spring apps, and they should.
Yeah, well, GraphQL, right? Like,
yeah.
What's the best way to? I mean, you have the web filters for like OAuth and whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, for granular endpoint level protection, you don't use a servlet filter for GraphQL.
Yeah.
You use method level protection. Isn't that right? Or
well, and it's also about defense in depth. I'm sure you've heard of that, but for anyone that hasn't heard about it, it's, the reason why you add the web-based security first, or not first, it gets invoked first, but you have web-based security and method security is to, in case one layer fails, you have the other one to still catch anyone trying to bypass authorization. And the reason why you want to do the web-based stuff is it reduces your attack surface. There's less code that it traverses before the authorization occurs. And the method security is there just in case it somehow got past that. It's a second layer of defense. So you want to do both in ideal circumstances. Have you checked out the new method security at all, Josh?
No, I guess that's what I'm trying to get to is saw something about it.
So I'm not very good at just like talking and like doing things like this or slides, but I was wondering if I could show some code.
Okay, method security application. Rob has an IDE open. It's IntelliJ. He's using a Mac. He seems comfortable.
Yeah, we'll see if I get mixed up. A recap is I just switched over to a Mac, so we'll see how my fingers from Linux to a Mac. So we'll see how my fingers behave here, but I think we'll figure it all out.
It really is hard to like Windows and Linux, same key bindings, but Mac is totally different thing.
Hey, so I was thinking maybe the best way to show some of these new features is using some code. So I thought maybe we'd start off with like creating a new class, like maybe bank account. That sounds like something we should secure, right? I mean, maybe. So we have a bank account, and then let's see, maybe we could do final int ID. We could do like a final string account number, final double balance. That looks right. And then we can add a constructor, and then maybe we could do some getters. So we have this bank account, and then I thought we could do like a bank account service.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm going to make it really fancy. You guys are going to love this. I'll do like public bank account, find by ID, and then return. You notice that was the first time the suggestion was helpful. Like all these, I don't get this like AI helping stuff. Like most of the time it's like pretty useless for me, but I don't know. Maybe, have you had better luck with it than myself, Josh?
Yes, but remember, I do demos, and a lot of times the demo is the same code.
Okay, so it learns about your stuff. Okay, that's fair.
It's like, I know this. It's like, stop me if you've heard this one, and the AI kicks in, and it's like, I heard this one.
Well, that's pretty useful. Yeah, that's pretty useful. Yeah, you know, one of my friends was actually telling me the other day, he's like, yeah, I was trying to get AI assistance for Spring Security, and it added an author tag for Rob Winch. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
But it's completely fine. They haven't trained on your code. Come on.
Yeah, not at all. Anyway, so one of the things that I get from people a lot of times is like, hey, so how's this method security work? So I'd like to kind of start off with that, if you don't mind, Josh.
Please. I mean, I do mind, but go ahead.
Yeah. So like if we do like bank.find by ID and then do one, this one should succeed, but let's do another one where we expect it to fail. And denied. Okay. And so how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to use some built-in stuff with Spring Security. So if you haven't used this testing support, this is just going to run with a username of Josh and Rob. And because the bank account that I'm returning is Rob, I would like it to not be accessible by Josh. But how do I do that? Well,
so you've got a Spring Boot test class with some methods annotated with that test, and you've added with mock user Rob to one, and with mock user Josh to another. And in that, you've got a bean that you've injected.
No, it's not a bean. It's not a bean.
Class.
It's not a bean. We're gonna work our way to a bean, so there's less magic happening.
Okay. So it's an instance variable called bank account service.
Yeah.
And you can find by ID, given an ID for an name.
Exactly. And it's always returning the ID that you passed in, and the owner is Rob, and the bank account number and balance static. Okay.
Checks out.
All right. So the thing is, like, how do we secure this? Well, if you're doing things manually, and I think this is kind of like the easiest way to understand is like, just do it manually first, right? So we do a security context holder, get context, get authentication. And we could say something like, if
principal is bank account, come on, AI.
Yeah, I know, right? So let's do this. Introduce variable. Quite know all of these shortcuts yet. Okay, so then if I say if the result.get owner does not equal principal.getName, then I will throw new authorization denied, exception denied, and then we'll do new authorization decision false. So got that taken care of. And so now if I run my tests, let's see, where did they go? Maybe I got to do it here. I don't understand what's going on here. It disappeared, the results. There we go. So when denied, okay. So this is what I would expect. So now I need to actually make the assertion, assert that exception.
So in that code, you manually threw an authorization exception, and that's the equivalent of if you had a filter magically configured for you, it would do the same.
Yeah, well, we'll see how to do this more more Spring-like in a moment.
Right, but it's kind of cool that you can.
Yeah,
you can use these rules and just manually grab the context from the folder and then throw an exception.
Yeah, and you know, like, you can also just set the security context here. So if we wanted to, like, if I delete this and I run it, it's going to fail. Yep. Just show you a little more manually what's going on. But if I do security context holder, get context, set authentication, new testing authentication, and I just got to make sure that says Rob. Don't tell anyone my password, Josh.
Never. This is just between you and me. No one.
All right. So now if I run it, this one will work, because that basically the with user is doing this thing for me automatically.
Okay. So for the podcast listeners, he just manually put in security context holder, get context, set authentication, new testing authentication token. Okay. So instead of using with mock user as an annotation on the method, you're explicitly just setting the context.
So we're gonna not do that though. The rest of the time, I was just showing that it's the equivalent.
Yeah.
And to demystify things, but it makes it a lot more concise. So we're going to stick with the annotation. So now we have this. Now it's like
user support roles.
Oh, yes, yes. So you could say, username, and you can say, and well, I can actually show that in a bit. So like I could say admin or something like that, but we're not even, we're not checking anything right now. So we're just checking the username for at the moment. So we'll stick with that for now. But like, so this is kind of cool, but like, how do we do stuff with like the proxies, and like what does a proxy actually look like under the covers? This is like something that a lot of people like get really confused about. Like this is pretty intuitive to people, where you manually code the security context holder, get the authentication, and then you do the security check, and if it passes, you return the result, otherwise you throw it access denied. Very intuitive to people, but what's like, a lot of people get confused when you're creating a proxy. So let's actually just manually create a proxy for the moment. Bank account service proxy. And actually, let's do one more thing. I just want to add one more thing here. We're going to add another method called public. Try to be a little more talkative.
Yeah.
Since the podcast, you keep reminding me about that nicely. I'm going to add a get by ID method, and I'm going to just return calling that other method.
So find
by ID. So find by ID is secured. Get by ID is not secured, but it's calling find by ID, which is secured. And we'll learn something about it in just a moment if we remember to come back to it, which I think we will. Yeah.
For people who watched my recent Spring Tips videos on proxies in Spring, if you did your homework, you'll probably can guess what's about to happen or what's about not to happen.
So I just basically added some tests for get by ID, which is calling the find by ID, and I actually need to change that, I guess. And right now they're all passing. But now let's see what happens if we let's add a proxy. So we're going to create a new class, and we'll call it bank account service proxy. Okay. And we're going to extend bank account service. And we have to do that because it's just a class, right? This is a class-based proxy, which you would normally create with the CGlib, yeah. Or, well, Spring would normally be creating automatically for you using CGlib. And I guess it doesn't really want to
override methods.
Was that there? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm still, like I said, still getting used to it. So we'll do that. We'll override that method. And then we'll extract that out to a variable result. And then we're going to just take this code out of here.
So you've got another class that's extending your bank account service, in which you plan to introduce this cross-cutting concern, which is security, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you're going to, in this bank account service proxy code, you've copied and pasted the security holder, all that security stuff. Okay.
Let's see. Oops.
That's super.
That's not. Oh no! I have to type that again. No way! I'm not going to do that. It's crazy. All right. Let's see. All right. Here we go. That's what I wanted to do. All right. So now what we'll do is we'll run our tests, and they'll fail because we haven't changed the proxy implementation yet. And now, if I switch to the proxy, hopefully we get some tests passing again. Boom. Now that's pretty cool, I think. But the things that a lot of people say is like, okay, well, I'm creating this like, and Spring uses CGlib to automatically create this proxy object that's doing the security check and then invoking the superclass. But what happens if I did something like this? If I said final, right? Well, we get a problem, right? So it's like, oh, well, that's a little confusing. What's going on? Well, it's because I can't extend the final class. So if I make my service or whatever I want to proxy final, I can no longer extend it as a class. I'd have to do something a little different. So what I could do is I could change this to an implementation, maybe. So like say impl, and then we'll do that. And then we'll extract out an interface, and we'll call that our original name bank account service. And then now that it's implementing bank account service, I can go into my proxy object and I can say implements bank account service. And then I'll say final bank account service delegate We'll create a new constructor. And then now here I'll say delegate.findById. And then we need to do the same thing here with override input methods, return delegate get by ID. So now we're basically delegating instead of overriding.
Yeah. So
and now,
composite.
Yeah, and so to do this, we also need to inject our original service. So new bank accounts, bank account service impl. And now this is another thing that is important with the interface-based proxies. The interface-based proxies can't be cast to the implementation because it's delegating. So this is teaching, showing you that there's trade-offs here, right? We can do the final, but we can't call it the class. Now, the other thing is when I run these tests, it might be a little surprising, but one of our tests is going to fail. And it's get by ID when denied. And the reason for that is because this get by ID now is going into our implementation. Our impl, it doesn't go into the impl, it goes into, where'd it go? Sorry. It goes into our proxy, and our proxy calls get by ID on the delegate, and the delegate calls get by ID. So if I go into the get by ID of the delegate, it calls find by ID, but it's not calling find by ID on the proxy anymore because it's composite. It's calling it on itself, and there's no security there. So that's a lot of times people are like, well, why didn't I get security if I'm using interface-based proxies? Well, it's because you're not invoking it on the class, the security class. You're doing it on the original class, and you can fix that obviously if you used AOP, but we're not gonna use like aspect J today. Sorry, if you use aspect J, then that sort of stuff would get fixed. But we're not really talk about aspect J today any more than that. So, anyways, that's kind of how this gets done. But let's see how we can kind of clean this up a little bit instead of using our manual proxy. So we can go into here and we can add a pre-authorize. Okay. And then in our pre-authorize, we do a return object, get owner equals authentication question mark, so we don't get null pointers. And then we'll duplicate that. I can't remember how to move it down the line with, oh, there we go. And put it on both methods. And now that I have those, I can go back to my test. And I'm not going to use the proxy, but first I'm going to create a authorize proxy factory. Have you seen this one?
No.
This is a little newer. This is one of the things that I want to kind of show people about. So I create this proxy factory, and the proxy factory, now I can just say proxy factory proxy, and then I'll cast it, and I'll run the tests, and ideally everything fails. Just kidding. Let's see, failed to create expression, property field, null. Let's see. Where did I go wrong? Bank account service. Here we go. Return object pre-authorize. Well, that's why, because it has to be a post-authorize. You can't do post-authorize on a return or pre-authorize on a return object, can you?
No.
So there we go. Now everything's working again.
Yes. So what you just did, you annotated the interface. So at this point, you've got two different classes in play. You've got the interface defining a few key methods, and you've decorated them with post-authorized annotation, explicitly telling Spring Security to check the return value of the method and look at the property called owner and see that it matches the current security context holder's authentication principal name. And then you used a object in Spring Security called the authorization proxy factory to make short work of advising that implementation. At this point, there's no Spring bean configuration.
Yeah, we're not doing a bean configuration just yet, but we'll definitely get there. So it looks a little more springy because we're using the annotations, but we're still manually proxying things with this factory. So the next thing we might want to do is you see I have a little bit of duplication in here. So let's see if we can clean that up a little bit. We can do something like class, and we'll call it, I don't know, post read bank account, something like that. And then this should have a retention of runtime. Oops, not fun time, runtime.
No, runtime.
Maybe it is fun time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It
It's
could be.
steady. Every time is right.
It could be, yes. And then that's just going to drive me nuts, the capital letter there. And then we'll go back to here and we'll just take this. And this way we don't have to repeat our expression everywhere. And then we'll go back to our bank account service and we'll change it to be our new annotation. And then we can do the same thing here. So now if I run my test, it should still work. And we got it. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool is we might want to make it like a little fancier. So like, what if I wanted to like say, or if the user has like a different role, like maybe there's an accountant that needs to be able to access your bank account information, like an accountant for the bank. And so they need to like access. So we'll just say like username equals accountant. I have to be able to spell, and that's kind of a problem.
Useful but not required. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this just let me, because I'm actually sitting here with bated breath at this point, and I'll let you cook. But is this going to have something to do with like cglib bean method style interception?
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, good. Then maybe not. Okay, keep going. This is really cool. I'm actually, I have no idea where this is going, and what is going on?
Yeah, so right now,
and this is a masterclass in like progressively enhancing an API, you know?
Yeah.
Really good.
All right, so let's just do this. We're gonna say we're gonna check it, and if I run this test, it's going to fail. But I want this person to have access. So now in our annotation, I can just say or as role accountant. And I'm not entirely sure I spelled that right, but
it doesn't look right, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I spelled it wrong. I spelled it consistently at least, because now my test passes. And the nice thing is, you know, like because I have that annotation, I can do the same thing on, like I only had to change it one place to do my thing. So if I do find by or get by, looks like I didn't name these. That's what I needed to do. So find by. So now if I run this, I only had to change it in one place because I have that meta annotation. So I updated my meta annotation, and now find by ID and get by ID both allow an accountant to access them. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that's you know, a little, let's see if we can take this a little bit further though. Like what if we wanted like to deny access to our accountant if they tried to access get account number? That could be kind of fun, right?
Wait, what?
So what if I wanted to deny access? So the accountant is allowed to see my balance because they're adding things up, but they're not allowed to see my account number because I don't want them to see it. It's like more private information. Maybe it could be a social security number or something like that. Let's just say the accountant can't see my account number. They can only see my balances because they're just adding stuff up, but I don't want them to actually be able to write checks on my behalf looking at my checking account number. Does that seem reasonable, Josh?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so how would we do that? Well, in here, we could go into this and we could kind of do the same thing that we did with our test. We'll grab our code that we had here to create the proxy factory. And don't worry, we'll clean this up because this is a little gnarly, somewhat on purpose, but it kind of shows us, oops, sorry, not that. I'm just kidding. It really should be in our service. So
yeah.
And here I will say, I'm just going to type it again because apparently I lost the copy paste by accident. So we do our proxy factory, get it with defaults, and then in here, return proxy factory.proxy. So now I'm basically returning the bank account now is proxied by our proxy factory, and I'd like to secure that. So now I can go into here and I could say, okay, well, this get account number is only going to happen if I have pre-authorized this. So this is referring to the bank account, and owner equals, let's see, authentication.name. So only if it's the authentication and owner name are equal. So now I'll rerun this and access is denied. That's what we expected, right?
Yeah.
So now we'll update our test so that it actually, I always like to kind of see it fail first and then fix it. Like, because otherwise it's like, did that really work?
It's a false positive or false negative.
Like, there we go. So now if I run it, it should be happy. Boom, we got it. So now we're able to do that. But you know what might be kind of cooler is like, maybe we don't want it to actually do that. Maybe we want the account number to like return like a mask instead of actually throwing an exception. What if we wanted it when it failed, it like returns a mask? That'd be kind of cool, right? Like a star, star, star or something. So what if we created like a mask, oh, sorry, we got, yeah, that is right. Okay, mask author method authorization and handler, something like that. And then we can implement method authorization denied handler and implement that. Now what we can do is we can say on here, I'm gonna just do, I don't know, let's just do this. We'll just do that. Okay. So now it's gonna be stars if I annotate this properly. So I have to add an annotation here to say handle authorization denied. And then the handler class is this, and it's going to be the mask that we just created.
And this is a constant number of masks so as to avoid a side channel?
No, it's honestly just because it's easy. There's nothing really there. And then I was going to say, here we want to make this a component, I guess. And so now I can run my tests again, and it should, oh my, that's interesting. Right, there is a special thing to enable that, the exception handling. And let's see, to do that, you have to exception handle. Let's see here. This is what I get for trying to wing things. I can't remember the name of the class, but just a second, we'll figure that out.
Command Shift O.
Provide. Let's go ahead and just start showing how we can make this a little cleaner. So earlier, you know, you keep seeing we have like these with these proxy factories. So let's see if we can fix that. So instead of manually doing it, let's let Spring do it for us. So in our application, we'll add this like enable method security, and then in here we'll create a new bean called, what was it? Bank account service, return new. So we've done that. And then in our test, we can now instead auto wire this. And then the other thing that we don't need to do anymore is on our bank account service. Oh, well, that might be actually one of the things that did we do that yet? Yes. So we need to add this thing called, well, we're going to revisit this in just a second. So, but in here, one of the things that we missed was we want to make sure that whenever we, like on our read statements, so we annotated this with pre-authorize, but in order to get that to pre-authorize, we also want to make sure that where are we at, that we have an annotation to activate that from happening. So let's go back to do that real quick. On here, we have the bank accounts and we have this. So we want to make sure we do authorize return object. So now whenever it gets returned, we can delete impl here. Now we don't need this proxy factory anymore. So by adding that annotation, Spring will automatically practice, even though this is created, this new implementation is created outside of Spring scope. You see in here, I'm just creating a new instance of bank account. Yeah. Because of this annotation on bank account service that has authorized return object, it will add a proxy to that object and make sure that it is getting secured as we would expect. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah. So basically the return value of the method itself gets proxied.
Yes. Yeah, which is what we were doing manually before, but now with the method security stuff, we could do that automatically. And in here, it looks like we're just auto wiring that. So let's go ahead and give this a run, see if that works. Oh, yes. Oh, and now we probably need to create that as a, what was it called? Did we have that? Let's see, count number. Is that opening? So I thought, oh, this needs to be a component. And and then this won't throw an exception, which is what we expect because we're handling it. So now we could just say assert that. I don't know why, but IntelliJ doesn't like if I do too many things at once is equal to, how many stars was that? 3 or 4? 4 probably. Let's say 4. And now, hey, we got it.
Nice.
That's kind of fun.
It is cool. So you're masking a property on the returned object from a method, which and then the method's on a bean that Spring is managing. So you're at this point,
yeah. So
method invocation removed from the bean that Spring itself is managing, and yet somehow magic being applied to those
attributes. So let's review that real quick. We have bank, which is auto-wired, so it's a Spring bean.
Bank account
service. Bank account service, and it's invoking a method which has security on it. And this bank account, we say authorize return object. Because we're saying authorize return object, that means that this bank account, even though we create that outside of Spring, Spring is using that proxy factory that we talked about earlier to wrap that in a proxy. So you don't have to manually do that. So in our bank account service, we're just saying new bank account, but Spring says, oh, I will automatically add security to the bank account so that when you invoke get account number, it does this pre-authorized check. And when it fails, we're able to handle it using this mask method authorization handler that masks it. So the thing that's nice about that is when you're doing your checks, you don't actually have to, you can actually handle that using the annotations rather than having to do it everywhere else. Like, oh, try catch finally, that sort of stuff.
Right.
So yeah,
that's so cool.
And that's a wrap. I apologize for the little hang up there with the internet, or
no big
actually,
deal.
I don't know that it was internet because all my internet was fine other than StreamYard. StreamYard was mad at me for something.
Yeah. Even if you reset,
I clicked on it, but it just didn't do anything once I went there. I don't know. Restarting seemed to help. Maybe this is really just a Windows machine and I'm tricking you. I don't know, but it did fix it.
That's really cool. So is that already GA or like?
Oh yeah, this is all GA. Yeah. So we were kind of chatting when I set it up, but the only dependency I added was Spring Boot Starter security on the latest 3.3.2.
Love this. Love it. And does it work in GraalVM? That's my aim.
With the caveat of many things with GraalVM, you do spell expressions, you'll have to add extra hints for Graal, but with that caveat, yes.
Cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate this, man. This has been super good. I'm going to go, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to download this video, cut out the bit where you disappeared.
Where I disappeared.
Post it with your permission.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Sorry to all the people that were suffering through this live, but it sounded like you had some things to talk about anyway. So
I was just venting about the sorry state of, it's just a not great over there on the PC side of things right now, but I'm sure, but at least it's for a good reason. They're going through a tumult, but it's going to get better. So I fully expect that within 4 or 5 years, they'll be where Apple is with the Macs today after 4 or 5 years of our own turmoil.
Yeah.
I still won't use it. Don't get me wrong. But at least it's not because of the hardware. It'll just be because of the terrible, terrible software. Okay. Well, this has been great. Thank you. This is like, and it's transparent. It's one of those things I love about Spring and security is I get protection at every level of my object graph without having to do particularly invasive stuff, right? You actually removed code throughout the course of this demo while adding more features. So huge win.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, Josh. I really appreciate it.
Oh, is there a link to the code?
I could put the code somewhere.
Or if you want, you can send it to me and I'll put it in Coffee Software.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
No, this was done on the fly, so I don't actually have any code.
Is it Coffee? So it's Coffee Software Show is the GitHub org, and the repository. I'll create it right now. Let me log in.
I just called it method security is what.
Yeah. So let me create that and I'll just put it in the link and put it on the show.
So let's see. We'll just do this real quick. Status. Thank you.
I'm assuming this is Apache 2 licensed.
Yes.
Okay.
It's YOLO. You can do what you want with it, but don't come back to me. An existing local. Yes. See. Let's see. We want to do it.
Can I put it all there?
What's that?
Can you push that code to this repository?
Oh, well, I was just adding it to my own repository.
Oh, even better.
You can fork it. Yes.
GitHub.com.
There we go. It should be pushed.
Okay, here it is right here. Even better.
But feel free to copy it over to your coffee.
Yeah, just for archiving. That's amazing. All right, everybody. We did a thing. This is great. This has been brought to you by the one, the only, the amazing, the inimitable Rob Winch. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.